Hey, thank you for tuning in. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be going to Poundland to basically try and create art with supplies that I find there after it was recommended as a video suggestion. I tend to love art supplies irrespective of price point, but for this challenge I thought it would be good to just try and keep it as cheap as possible, but still try to preserve some level of quality, so this paint set was completely out of the question. I did see it on Rowney and I recognise it. The reason that I didn't go for the tubes is because it came with white and black, which I don't tend to use in my watercolours. I got this craft paper because it was nice and shiny, and then some paint brushes, a gold paint marker pen that in theory should work like a Posca pen, and then some watercolor paper. And I haven't used the Denarali Basic or Simply range before, but I have used their other watercolor paper, so hopefully they are not too different. First impressions is just that it's a lot thinner than I would expect, a lot lighter than I would expect, so I don't know, we'll see how that works. In theory it's watercolor paper, so hopefully it works well. The paints actually look quite bright, almost like poster colour for kids, so I'm kind of curious to see how they'll actually work. As is customary, I thought that I would start things off by doing swatches of the colours as well as mixing them together just to see how the paint themselves work. And my aim for this whole video was to basically do a painting on the watercolor paper and then stick it onto the gold card that I got, and the end result will be like a card basically with an original piece of art on the front. My first impressions of these paints are, to be honest, not good. To be honest, it's dreadful. But hey, my aim is to have fun, so I'm trying. I don't know if you can tell, but basically it's almost as if there's no pigment, there's just binder. So although I keep adding more and more paint, I just can't get any bright or saturated color. It's not getting picked up by the paper, and you can't see this, but the paper itself is buckling, so it's not even handling the water that I'm using at the moment. So I just keep going back and forth to add more and more paint, and instead of the paint kind of getting absorbed into the paper and merging, it's just going to the edges really. So those are the three primary colors that I've just swatched, and then a green is also included there, which also kind of does the same. So that's the first time me going through, it's still quite light, and then I think I go through, I just add more paint maybe 3 times before you can actually see a good color throughout. This experience is bringing something back to mind, and those who will have watched my watercolor starter kit will know what I'm talking about. But my friend, there is a difference between cheap paints that are good and things that are just trash and happen to be cheap, right? You want to listen to the bit about the watercolor paint. So we've established a couple of things. One, my expectations were too high, and two, I'm a cheapskate. But hey, this is a challenge, and it's a challenge that I'm going to really try hard at. So the aim is to create a piece of art. This is me mixing the colors together, and I don't know if you can tell, but basically the orange is a bit muddy. I'm not sure why. Then I tried to mix the blue and the red together to make purple, and that just didn't work either. It just did not work at all. Okay, let me stop laughing. And then, you know, to give credit where credit is due, the blue and the yellow actually created like a nice-ish okay green. So actually that mix wasn't too bad in comparison to the other colors. Why all the colors kind of have this wet look, I do not know, but this is our palette, this is what we're left with, these are the colors that we can make. And to be honest, maybe the purple's growing on me a little bit. I don't know, desperate times. Anyway, so I wanted something quick and easy, and I wanted something that would require minimal color mixing because we have seen that that is not the strongest suit of these paints. So I went for florals, my absolute love. So I did some loose florals. Those are peonies and roses, and I think, you know, one of the good things about swatching is that you kind of get a bit more familiar with the colors, you get familiar with how they work, which made this painting easier than it would have been otherwise. I was able to get some nice greens and do a loose floral bouquet. Would I be able to do something more complex? Probably not, especially if any kind of level of color mixing was required, because I pretty much had to stick to the primaries that I had apart from the greens. The paper couldn't really handle the little water that I was using. It was buckling, it was quite light. The paints almost behaved like watered down acrylics rather than watercolor paints themselves. So layering wasn't possible. I wasn't really able to mix given the colors that you saw. A lot of them were quite muddy, and I think it's just because of the pigments that's in the paints. This challenge has kind of reaffirmed that you can pretty much create art with anything, and it's down to personal preference how much you will enjoy it or not. Would I recommend these paints? Absolutely not. That being said, if you watch this video and you're like, yeah, those colors are a bit of me, then you do you, and you go ahead to Poundland and you buy these paints, or you buy it from Dale Rowley themselves. A highlight of this video, I must say, is the paint marker. So I'm using the gold paint marker, and those who've used Posca pens will know what I mean, but essentially it's acrylic paint in a pen. And this gold paint marker actually worked incredibly well. I cannot believe that it is only £1, especially when Posca markers cost so much more. But yeah, that was like an absolute gem of a find. If I run out of gold, then I'll probably head over and get that there first before I replace the whole Posca set. So that was worth it, especially if they last long, because that's insane. This is pretty much the card at the end. It's given me like a lot of Christmas vibes. I don't know if it's because of the red and the green. I don't know what it is about this piece, but I'm not gonna lie, despite the struggles with the colors, I actually do like the final piece. So Dale Rowney actually make a set of watercolor paper that I tend to go to, but this was just not it. I can't recommend it at all. This is the set that I normally use to practice, and although it's the same company, I don't know why there was such a big discrepancy in the quality. This acrylic paint marker, absolute gold. I would recommend it. Really enjoyed using it. These watercolor paints, honestly not worth getting, if I'm completely honest. My personal opinion, don't sue. The paintbrushes were actually completely fine. I only used one, to be fair, the bigger one, but yeah, it works well, carried water, so no complaints there. And the gold craft paper, so the gold is really nice and shimmery. The card itself is quite light, so it would probably be better to add onto a thick piece of card for like embellishments, for example, rather than having it as the actual card. And that's it, challenge complete. Thank you to Miss McNamara for the video suggestion. It was a great one and it was really fun to try out the channel. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching, especially if you've made it this far into the video. You're the real MVP. Let me know that you made it this far by telling me what your favorite cheapest art supply is. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you next week. Bye.